we want to factor this binomial, 7y plus 70, so we got two terms. You see anything common to both terms? Looks like there's a 7 common to both terms, so I'm going to factor out a 7. So if I take out a 7, all right, what do we need to put here and here that when we multiply in, we would get back to 7y plus 70? Well, first of all, I can see 7 times y. If I put a y here, I'll get 7 times y. That'll give me the 7y. And then just make a division. All right, positive 70 divided by 7 is plus 10. So I'm going to put a y here plus 10 here. All right, so factoring is the opposite of multiplication. You can check this by multiplying 7y plus 70. So to get, when you're given the product, right here, this is a product, to factor it, you just do the opposite. Find a common factor, 7 in this case, take it out, and then make the divisions to see what goes in. Now what about this number 2? What's common between a 3 and a 6? Well, they both have a 3, right? You can multiply, you can divide both by 3. And then what about the x's? I got x to the 5th here and x cubed here. So there's 3 x's here, 5 of them here, so there are at least 3 x's in each one. So I'm going to take out an x cubed. Now, here's what's left. Make this division. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, okay, I've got 3x to the 5th, and I'm divided by 3x cubed. What's left? The 3's are gone, so no 3. And then right here, I got 5 x's on top, 3 on the bottom. The 3 on the bottom will cancel with 3 on the top, leaving 2 of them, right? You just, what we're doing is dividing. Now, when you multiply, you add the exponents. When you divide, subtract. So 5 minus 3 is 2. So I'm going to get an x squared. Now, does it work? If you make that multiplication, what do you get? Sure enough, you get 3x to the 5th. Now, what about here? Right, I start with 2 terms. I need to end with 2 terms. Negative 6 divided by 3, negative 2. And x cubed divided by x cubed is just 1. So we've got it. And you can check it. Just multiply back in. 3x cubed times x squared is the 3x to the 5th. And 3x squared times negative 2 is negative 6x cubed. Now, in number 3, as I look through this, I don't see anything common to all 4 of these factors. But I do see this. What if I group together the first 2, right? The first 2 have what in common? Well, we've got 3 x's here, right? X cubed, I got x, and over here I got x. So there's at least 2 x's in each one. So there's an x squared common here. And what about these 2? Well, between 16 and 2, there's a 2 common, right? 2 goes into both of those. So what I'm going to do is factor by grouping, all right? So this is by grouping. So I'm going to group together the first 2 and the second 2. So out of the first 2, I'm going to take out an x squared. Now, if I take that x squared, like out of here, just take out x squared. What are you left with? You're left with the 8, and if I have 3 x's and remove 2, I'm left with 1. So I've got 8x. And then right here, I've got minus x squared. If I take out the x squared, well, x squared and x squared goes 1, so I have to have something to put there. I'll get minus 1. Okay, now just run a quick check. X squared times 8x is 8x cubed. X squared times negative 1 is negative x squared. Now, plus, let's come over here, plus. Now, in the second group, I'm taking out a 2. So I'm going to take out a 2, and if I take out a 2, what am I left with? Well, 2 goes into 16 8 times, and there's an x still there, so I'll get 8x. And then 2, positive 2, into negative 2, that goes negative 1 times. Now we're close. See what we have here? Now, here's what I did. I started with 4 terms. 1 up at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I did some factoring. I've got 2 terms. 1, right? This is all a multiplication. So I get 1, 2. So I've gone from 4 terms to 2 terms. But now I notice in these 2 terms, what's common is this 8x minus 1. So I'm going to take that out. And if I take that out, you can just see what's left. If you just take this out, what's left? The x squared plus 2. So what's left is x squared plus 2. Now, in number 4, we have 4 terms, and there's nothing common all the way through, right? There's s's here, but no s over here. So there's nothing in common. So when there's nothing in common and I have an even number of terms, I'm going to think grouping, all right? So think about grouping. Now, if I group together the first 2, what's common here? Well, I've got x cubed and I've got s squared, so there's at least an s squared in these. So there's an s squared. And in the second group, what's common between 6 and 30 is a 6. Now here's what I'm going to do. When I factor by grouping, you see that middle sign? I'm always going to take out that. I'm going to take out a plus 6. So I'm going to write it explicitly here. Whatever that sign is in the middle term right there, that third term, I'm going to take that sign out and attach it to this one. Now, let's group. So take out the s squared. So in the first 2 group, take out an s squared. What are you left with? You start with, all right, so I'm taking out the s squared. Well, let me write an s squared here. And then what's left? Well, if I have 3 s's like this, right, I have s, s, s. If I take out ss, I'm left with 1s. Okay, I'm thinking this. S cubed is this. S, s, s. If I take out s squared, which is s, s, I'm left with just 1s. All right, so I'm left with 1s. And then over here, if I take out an s squared here, right, negative 5s squared, if I remove the s squared, I'm just left with that negative 5. So minus 5. Let's come over here. Now, I'm taking out a positive 6. So take out a positive 6. Now, if you take out positive 6, what's left? Just do a division. 6s, take out the 6. What's left is the s. And then positive 6 and the negative 30 is minus 5. Now, when you do these factoring by groupings, the problems are written so that these two should match. If they're not matching, rethink what you did up here, because I think they're written so they're supposed to match. Now, the s minus 5 is common to both of those terms, so I'm going to take that out. And then if I just remove it, or I just think about, okay, take it out of here and take it out of here, what's left? The s squared plus 6. And you can always check it. Just multiply through, multiply everything in here by everything in here, and see if it equals your original expression. Now I've got a trinomial. We are going to factor a lot of these in an algebra course. So here's how I'm going to do these. Notice, first of all, anything common all the way through? V, V, no V's here. Nothing's common. So start by writing 2 sets of parentheses. Now let's fill it in. So the way I'm going to fill these in is, look at this V squared. Now, it's V to the second power. Take half of this and you'll just get 1. So V to the first, and put the V here and a V here. Now when you multiply, don't you get a V squared? Yeah. Now what I want is, what do I put here and what do I put here? So when I multiply through and combine terms, I get this. Well, let's see. What I'm looking for are 2 numbers that when I multiply them together, I get 35. But when I add them together, I get 12. Now, you might think this, 35. How can you get a 35 if you multiply 2 numbers together? 35 times 1, but you add those, you don't get 12. Or I could do 7 and 5. Now 7 and 5, if I add these, I get 12. So I think that's going to be it. So I'm going to put a 7 here and a 5 here. Now I notice this. What sign do I need here? Plus, minus, what is it going to be? Well, look at this term here. It's positive 35. So when I know this, when I multiply 2 numbers with the same sign, I get a positive. So how can I get a positive? The 7 and the 5 have to have the same sign. Now the sign is going to be the same, and it's going to be this one right here, because I got to get a negative 12. So if that last number is positive, these 2 numbers have the same sign, and it's going to be that middle sign right there. Minus 7, minus 5. All right, so our factored form is V minus 7, V minus 5, and you can check it by multiplying those 2 together. Number 6, anything common all the way through? I don't see any numbers common all the way through, so I'm just going to start by writing my two sets of parentheses, anticipating that I can actually do this. Now, this is m squared, so just take half of that exponent, 1, and put m to the first here, m to the first here. Now the question is, what do we put here, and what do we put here? Well, whatever I put here and here, they're going to multiply each other, and they have to come out to 21. But they have to add to 10. So how can you get, just think about this, how can you get to 21? What two numbers can you multiply together to get 21? 21 and 1. Now, when I add these two numbers, I don't get a 10, so that's not going to work. But what about 7 and 3? Well, 7 and 3, when I add those, sure enough, I get a 10. So I'm going to put in a 7 and a 3. Okay, I could do it this way. Doesn't matter which order. M3, M7. But now what sign goes in here? What sign? What sign do I put here? Well, look at this. This is positive 21. So they have to have the same sign, right? To multiply two numbers and get a positive, they have to have the same sign, and that sign is going to be plus. So I'm going to put a plus here. Okay, or I could write it this way. Now here in number 7, it looks like we have three terms and something's common to all three, right? They're all three of these coefficients, or the 2 and the 8 and the 64, they're all even. So I can take out a 2, right? 2, what's the biggest number you can divide into the 2, 8, and 64? A 2. So there's a 2 common. So take out the 2, and if you remove the 2, what are you left with? Well, an a squared, now negative 8 times positive 2 is negative 4, and you still have the a. And then negative 64 divided by positive 2 is negative 32. Okay, so now we're close. We've got to get this one here. So bring the 2 down, bring the 2 along. Write the two sets of parentheses, anticipating we can do this. Now, how are you going to get the a squared? Only one way to get the a squared. That's going to be an a and an a. Now we just have to determine what do we put here and here to get 32. So what would I multiply to get 32? Well, let's see. I'll just think about it. 32. How can you get 32? 32 and 1. Now, I want to get them all. So here's how I do this. If that number is even, I can always cut in half and double. Cut in half and double. So 16 and 2. Now, this number is still even, so I can cut it in half, cut this in half, double that. So I'll get 8 and 4. Now this number here is even, so cut in half and double. So I'll get 4 and 8, but that's the same as this. These are the same. All right, so here's my choices. 32 and 1. Now if I add 32 and 1, I'm not going to get a negative 4. What about this one? 16 and 2. If I put a 16 and a 2 here, add them together, I'm not going to get negative 4. But what about this? 8 and 4? 8 and 4, if I subtract 8 and 4, I'll get a 4, right? If I do 4, I think I can get a 4 out of that. So what if I do a 4 and an 8? Or an 8 and a 4, it doesn't matter. Now look, this number here is negative. So when I multiply these two numbers to get a negative, they have to have opposite signs. They have to have opposite signs. Now look at the middle term. See that minus? Put the minus with the bigger product. Now look at the outer product. The outer product is 8a. The inner product is only 4a. This outer product is bigger. That's the one I want to dominate. So I'm going to put this middle negative sign with the bigger product. So I'm going to put it over here. See what that does? That gives me negative 8a. And then here I would put the plus sign, giving me negative 8a plus 4a is negative 4a. In number 8, anything common all the way through? Y to the 4th, y cubed, y squared. All right, there's at least 2 y's in here. All right, I got 2 y's here. I got 3 of them over here and 4 of them over here. So I'm going to take out the one with the smallest exponent, the y squared. So take out a y squared. Now, what's left? Well, I started with 4 of them. I removed 2. So just do the subtraction. 4 minus 2 is 2, so I'll get y2. And you can see it when you multiply, you add. That's why you do the subtraction. Okay, now what about over here? I got y cubed. I got 3 y's. Subtract 2 of them. I'm left with 1. So it's going to be minus 17y. And then over here, we've got 72y squared. Well, if I remove the y squared, I'm just left with the plus 72. Now, bring down the y squared, right? Bring that one down. Now, 2 sets of parentheses, anticipating we can do this. Now, this y squared, I can get that with a y and a y. And what about that 72? What about this 72? What numbers am I going to put here and here that when I multiply, I get 72? Well, here's what I'm thinking. 72, I can get with 72 and 1. Now, this is what I always use. If this is even, just cut this in half and double that one. So I'll get 36 and 2. Now, 72 and 1, I cannot get a 17 out of that. When I add them together, add or subtract, no way I get 17. What about this? 36 and 2. When I add and subtract, I don't get a 17. So, let's go again. Okay, even, so cut in half and double, 18 and 4. All right, now still with the 18 and 4, if I add or subtract the 18 and 4, I don't get a 17, right? I either get 22 or 14. That doesn't work. But now still even, so cut in half and double, 9 and 8. Oh, I think we got it now, right? 9 and 8. If I add those together, I can get a 17. So let's put in the 9 and the 8. Now, it doesn't matter. You could put the 8 here and the 9 here. It doesn't matter. Now, the sign. We'll get the sign. Look up here at this 72. It's positive, right? 9 times 8 is 72, but it's positive 72. So to get a positive number, when I multiply, the 9 and the 8 have to have the same sign. And that sign is always going to be that middle sign there, negative. So I'm going to put a negative here and a negative here. And now you can see it. Y times y is the y squared. The outer product, negative 8y. The inner product, negative 9y, right? Negative 8y's minus 9y's, negative 17y's. And negative 9y, negative 9 times negative 8 is positive 72. So we've got our factored form right there. Now, number 9, when I look through here, there's nothing in common, right? I got a 5 and a 37 and a 24. There's no number that goes into all of those evenly. And I got m's here, but no m's here. All right, so nothing to take out initially. So write 2 sets of parentheses. Now, how are we going to get this 5m squared? I want something times something. Well, the 5, there's only one way to get the 5. That's a 5 and a 1. So I'm going to write this as 5m times m. Now, you could put the m and the 5m over here if you like, but 5n times m, 5m squared. Now, this one, we're going to have to work a little bit harder. This 24, I got to think, okay, what 2 numbers are going to multiply together to give me 24, but I can't just get factors of 24 now, because whatever I put here and here, I'm going to get that, this one out here is going to multiply by 5. So it's not just looking for 2 numbers that add to 37. We're going to have to work a little bit harder here. So I'm going to do a guess and check thing here. So first of all, this 24 is even. So I'm going to cut in half and double. So this is going to be 12 times 2. Now, let's just do it again. Cut in half and double. 6 and 4. Cut in half and double. 3 and 8. Okay, now let's just experiment. Now, here's what we could try. What if I just pick one of these? What if I picked this one here, okay? This doesn't work, but what if I pick that one? If I put the 24 here and the 1 here, here's what we would have. We would multiply. I'd get 5m and 24m. Now, when I take 5m and 24m, I can't get a 37 out of a 24 and a 5, right? So that one's not going to work. Now, we have to check all these combinations. So here's what I could have to try. I could have to try, well, what if I put the 24 over here and the 1 here? Now this gives me 5 times 24. Now we're at 120 and 1. All right, that's not even close. So that's not going to work. So look, we've got all these possibilities here. Here's what I suggest you do. Not that it always works 100% of the time, but I know how these problems are written, and they're written typically, the first time I'm going to try it, I'm going to go for the pair that's closest together. Right? Which pair up here of numbers is closest together? This doesn't always work, but it often works. The pair closest together is the 6 and the 4. All right, now, if I try this, if I put the 6 here, okay, well, I can see it. If I put the 6 here, I get a 30. But then if I put the 4 over here, I'm getting 30 and 4. I can't get a 37 out of those. So what if I change positions with a 6 here and a 4 here? Well, now this gives me 20m and 6m. 20 and 6. I can't get a 37 out of that. So those numbers don't work. So that's a good place to start, is just pick the ones that are closest together. That was this pair here. It didn't work. So go to the next pair that's closest together. That would be this, a 3 and an 8. Okay, now, where are you going to put these? So what if I put the 3 here and the 8 here? Is there a chance? That's 40m and 3m. 40m and 3m, I can get a 37 if I can get the signs right. Now, this sign here is negative. So these two numbers have to have opposite signs. One has to be plus, one has to be minus. So look over here. That middle sign is positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a plus sign with the bigger product. Now this product here is 40m. This inner product is only 3m. So put the plus sign with the bigger one. 40m. So I'm going to put the plus sign right here. That'll give me plus 40. The minus has to go over here. So plus 40 plus 40m minus 3m is 37m, and we've got it. All right, these take a little bit of work now. I'll call it the method of good guesses. So what can we do with this one number 10? First of all, I got a 2, a 1, and a 55. Nothing common. There's an n and no n's over here. All right, so let's write our 2 parentheses, anticipating we can do this. Now, the only way I can get this 2n squared is to write a 2n and an n. Right? That'll give us 2n squared. The only one way to get a 2, that's a 2 and a 1. Now, what numbers do I put in here? Well, whatever I put in here, we're going to have to multiply together to get 55. So let's set this up here. How can you get a 55? Well, 55 and 1. Now, let's see, what else? Well, this ends in a 5, so both these are this is divisible by 5. So if I divide this by 5, I'll get 11, and then multiply this by 5, I'll get 5. All right, so I didn't cut in half and double. I divided by 5, and I multiplied by 5. Now, I'm going to start with the pair that's closest together. I'm going to start with 11 and 5. Now, where do I put these? Well, I'm just not thinking I'm going to put the 11 here, because 11 times 2 is 22, and I've just got a 1 here. That just seems too big. So I'm going to put the 11 here and the 5 here. Now, let's look at these products. What's the outer product? There's 10n. What's the inner product? 11n. So out of a 10 and 11, we can get a 1, right? There's a 1 there. It's just implied. So I get a 10 and an 11. I can get a 1. Get the sign right. This sign here is negative. So these two numbers have opposite signs. One's positive, one's negative. Look at that sign right there. It's positive n. So where do I put the positive? Put the positive, the plus sign, with the bigger product. Now, the way I've written mine, the outer product is 10n. The inner product is 11n. That's bigger. So I'm going to put the plus sign with this one right here, 11 plus 11n. So I get plus 11n minus 10n, right? Plus 11n minus 10n is plus n, plus 1n. I've got a trinomial, and I don't see anything common to all three terms. I got t's here, but no t's here. I got f's here, but no f's here. There's no common factor. So let's write our two parentheses, anticipating we can do this. Now, how are we going to get this t to the second power? How do we get a t squared? Well, that's just going to be, take half of that exponent, right? Just take half of this exponent. So that's 1. So I'll get a t and a t. Now, over here, I've got an f squared, so I know I'm going to have at least an f and an f in here. So I know I'm going to have an f here and an f here. But what do I do for this 60? Right? Well, I need two numbers to multiply together to give me 60. When I add them together, I get 4. All right? So let's look at the 60. How can you get a 60? A 60 and a 1. Now, when I add those together, I'm not going to get a 4. Cut in half and double. 30 and 2. Well, if I add them, I get 32. If I subtract them, I get 28. Not even close to 4. Still even, so cut in half and double. I'll get 15 and 4. All right, that's not going to work either, right? Because if I add them, I get 19. If I subtract them, I get 11. Now, 15 is not even, so I can't cut it in half. But I can divide it by 5 or 3. I'll take the bigger one. Divide it by 5. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to divide by 5, multiply by 5. So that'll give me, divide by 5, I get 3. Multiply by 5, I get 20. All right, now 3 and 20, that's not going to give me a 4. Now, I've just run through all the possibilities, and I can't get a number here and here that's going to give me that 4, that negative 4. So there just aren't any. So I'm going to say that this is already factored completely. We just can't go any further. This one is already factored. Okay, that one's factored completely already.